Someone said something to me the other day, and oh boy, it really upset me. It was something along the lines of, "Hey Brian, if it's quick, why don't we just implement it? We don't need to test it with users or do prototyping or test it in any way, shape, or form. We can just implement it quick." Because it's quick. That's the second thing that somebody could tell me that would upset me so much. First would be, "Oh, you owe me money." Listen, we've seen this. The first would be, "I don't need coaching."
That would be, yeah. We'll start this array at 0.
I'm the expert. I don't need coaching.
That's right. I'm the expert. This is not that uncommon, honestly, because people think about this and say, "Why do we go to the trouble of doing all of the due diligence?" Right. Well, we can just do it, right? And it is one of those things that if you take it at face value, and if you take it up to leadership, they're going to say, "How long is it going to take? If you're going to prove something, how long is it going to take?" Right. "Oh, it's not long." "Okay, well, just do it then." Right?
Or the other thing I've heard is the time it takes us to talk about what we want to do, I could have already developed it.
Yeah, that irks me. That means you haven't thought about it. Yeah. So So you're right. So let's get into this, right? If you're just going to do it, you don't even know what it is that you're going to do. You have an idea, and you have basically just a very, very nuanced view of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Which is to say, you really don't know beyond your idea. You haven't thought about it laterally. You haven't thought about it, widely. What about the repercussions? Does it align with your current product?
Well, let's go up in the podcast. Let me start in the. I don't know why I'm on this side. I was upset by this when it came up, and I felt like I felt that I didn't know why I was reacting negatively. When I was reacting negatively to this, I couldn't, I only had a feeling of unease, and I was like, this is not good. But in the moment, I couldn't tell why. Okay, but there are two things that I clearly can understand as the benefit, as someone seeing a benefit. Okay, if someone's going to see a benefit for anything that we're about to talk about, I can clearly see two things. Number one, I can build it right away. We don't need to spend a bunch of time talking about it. We don't need to prototype it. We don't need to spend a bunch of effort. Okay? So two things. Number one is I can build it into the application faster than we could prototype and go back and forth with users on it. So speed of delivery. Okay? I can deliver faster than our feedback cycle works, which first of all, let's revisit that here in a second, okay? I know you want to dig into that. Even when I say it, it sounds ridiculous. The other side of this is, if I don't have to engage a designer, and I don't have to engage a product manager, and I don't have to get customers on the phone, and I don't have to delay building the feature or whatever, there is a perception of a reduced upfront cost. I don't have to pay all those costs to do all that stuff. I'm just going to throw it in the application and throw it out there. And also, I feel there is a legitimate claim in between these two things. Is I can just do it faster, and I don't need to prototype it and to vet that prototype out. There is the potential of a fake door feature. I can just throw a button in the app, throw it out to the users for a select period of time, and then toggle it off, right? Assuming we have good development practices, and then toggle it off after 24 hours, 48 hours, however long we're doing the test for. We're running the test, and then I can turn it off. And now I've basically introduced that feature into code, instead of quote testing it via prototyping and user groups and whatever else. Those are the two things that I feel will be used as to fly the flag of the banner of we should do it this way. We should just test ideas by just implementing the ideas. Meaning either implementing the full-blown idea or the very MVP of the idea and just throwing it in the application, or implementing a fake door version of the idea and just throwing it in the application. And then we don't need, clickable wireframes. We don't need to hire a UI UX designer. We don't need to go through, having user testing groups. We don't need these feedback cycles and all this kind of stuff. We don't need any of that. We'll test it all live in production.
Yeah, I think there are several ways to kind of reduce your risk there, right? So in that scenario, we said fake door. Some people can use it. Maybe you can maybe just feature toggle the thing away and say, okay, only a select group of users can have the key to unlock the toggle, so to speak, right? You can do all of those kinds of things. The thing I would like to caution here is this: how small of a feature is it? right? So if you have a UX component to it, and you're going to say just build it, are you using the same UX standards that you've used so far? Are you going to use something quick and dirty that it visibly looks different, where it could be jarring as an experience if you're not careful? But if it's that small that people aren't going to see it, and it falls into the same UX themes that you've used before, you could try it. So how I would like to proceed with something like this, given the choice, is not just do it and put it into production, just do it in production. Do it quickly. You don't have to bother with all of those things that you talked about, that cost money and time. But don't put it in production yet. Put it in an elevated environment and let the customer see it. And if they like it, you can promote it up to production. So that's kind of, again, reducing your risk a little bit. If that sliver is not so thin, right, then, and this is very kind of, I guess, contextual, you got to think about that and say, are we introducing risk? Can we break something, right, that's already working, first of all? Secondly, is this something that aligns with the rest of the product and where we're trying to go with it? Are we trying to solve a problem for one customer, or is it part and parcel of the product itself, right? So it's going to serve every customer, or is it select personas, etc.? You got to figure that out, right? I think there's still some time that needs to be spent considering all of these things before you say, yes, just go build it, because it's just going to be 2 hours worth of work, let's say. So those are things that I immediately think about when given this scenario, right? And then the other thing I think about is, okay, what if something goes wrong here, right? How do we retract that out? Now, if you're feature toggling, that's easy. But if you're just promoting something into production, you've now got to retract that and say, we got to take that back down and go back to version N-1. All of that is already costing you money that you would have been better spent doing the due diligence in the first place, right? So there's those things to consider as well. And lastly, if it's taking more than just a couple of hours, more than a day, what's the opportunity cost? What should you have been doing instead? So those are considerations that I think about right away.
The opportunity cost is a great one to highlight. Like what else? Because we're doing this, what else are we not doing?
Right.
We can do fake door features. We can do whatever, and that gets especially if you're B2C and you really don't have direct access. Like maybe you have so many customers that direct access to any one particular persona or group of personas is not feasible.
Right.
Even when I say it's not even really fair, because you still probably are going to have a select group of beta users or power users or
early adopters.
Early adopters. Example users. You're going to know your early users who are really, they're on top of it. They know when new features come out. They're playing with them all. They're giving you feedback, that kind of stuff. What I expect to become an issue here is the lack of user validation of saying, hey, why don't we just create this new feature and throw it out there? It's going to take less time to develop it and throw it out there than it is for us to talk about and agree on what we want to do with different screen designs and internal voting and whatever. Like, I'll just create something, throw it out there. Yeah, but you haven't, then there's no consideration of your users and what they want from it.
Yeah, this is why I say put it into a stage or a UAT environment. Let them, get their hands on it, get some feedback. You may decide to say, okay, this is fine. We're going to go right away into production. That's fine. That's the ideal case for you, right?
Yeah.
It's quick, and that's the straight line path. But you may just hear something from the users that are beating it up in a UAT environment that says, oh, it's not quite right. So at least you haven't risked it putting in production yet.
Well, also, it could be the wrong problem that you solved.
Exactly. Right.
Like, how are you going to, without directly talking to users, like sitting on a call when users are walking through it, like how else are you going to get feedback like that? Basically you've solved the wrong problem, or you solved the problem at the wrong stage or the wrong step or whatever. Like I think about mobile apps specifically, like you solved, maybe you've reduced the pain, but that what you did was reducing pain in the wrong spot. Maybe the very painful spot is still in a different spot, and because you threw something out there. Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe you did resolve some pain, but the more valuable fix was in a different area.
Yeah, you may have solved it for the wrong persona even.
Right.
It can happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So depending on the product. So yeah, I think it's easy to do a snap decision and go, it's faster to do it than just talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes there's bigger repercussions. Are you building up technical debt as a result of this decision? I almost said hasty decision because I want to say that it is a hasty decision at the end of the day. You're trying to do something quickly, right? And so go back all the way to the beginning of that. Why are you trying to do something so quickly?
Right.
Are you trying to leapfrog the competition on this new thing that you think is going to be so valuable for your customers? Right? Why? Why not go through all of the due diligence?
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I've been in a lot of companies where the development teams are not in the mode of talking to customers, where they get excited about a solution, or the sales mainly leads the development efforts, like prioritization and whatnot, and they get excited about something, and that's why they jump on a particular solution.
Yeah. Oftentimes I reduce that down to the developer saying, hey, I got a solution. Do you have a problem for that? Right. So yeah, I mean that can spell a lot of trouble for you from a product lens. You're gonna have a product that is not only not fit for purpose in the end, like 100%, let's say, or 95% if you're happy with that. It's gonna go deviate. It's gonna deviate away from that because developers are already solutioning things that they think are needed versus validating the need first.
Another thing to bring up is the different types of companies. Like I wanted to do a whole different podcast on the different types of companies that are out there. There are visionary-led companies, like everyone always thinks of Apple under Steve Jobs, like everyone's basically following his lead to what to build next. A visionary-led company. You have one particular founder who's a real visionary, who has an idea of the future, and everyone's kind of basically that's the source where the ideas are coming from, versus a company where the ideas are coming from sales, like what they're saying customers need to sign deals and whatnot. So you're following sales. You're a sales-led company, versus a technology-led company where the technology wing of the company is saying, "Hey, we discovered this new way of doing whatever. We're going to implement it. Isn't it cool?" Now they're trying to engage sales, marketing, whoever, to say, go drum up some customers for this cool new thing that we have available. The idea of the technology led, like we're gonna build something cool and hope that we can find some customers for it, that has its own set of troubles.
Yeah, I think we're gonna delve deeper into it in that podcast. I think that's gonna be good because I like that topic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also an interesting one because the more I dig into the Steve Jobs visionary myth, the more I realize that it's not true at all.
Yeah,
Steve Jobs had to be convinced to build the iPhone. He was resistant to the idea of building the iPhone in the first place. I found a really, really, really interesting blog about that a while back, and I wanted to have a podcast on it. We never have yet.
Yeah, there's visionary-led companies that people think about, like Apple under Jobs, but also now these days Elon Musk as well, right? As a visionary, and to a lesser degree perhaps Richard Branson, because when he came out with, originally I guess it was the record company, right? I'm sure he didn't think about owning an airline at that point, right? But anyway, so that we're gonna save that for later podcast.
Yeah. But the idea of like the kind of through line that we were talking about is that it would save you costs to do this. But the reality is it ends up increasing development costs to go up but by building everything that you're trying to prototype, building everything in the final application, basically, and sending it out. Because you end up getting feedback, which leads to rework. Again, assuming you don't have any architectural challenges or technical debt or anything, assuming none of that, you end up, every time that you get feedback, you need to change something, you end up having to go back into your application and change things that like the development team thinks is minor, or it's maybe not minor or whatever, maybe because the way it's implemented it's major to change small tiny things. But now that you've implemented it one way, you have to come back and refactor every time you want to change it for customer feedback.
Yeah, I agree, and all of that feeds into that other topic, like of opportunity cost. You've now incurred all this cost because you wanted to cut corners in the first place, right? I think there's probably somewhere, I almost say middle ground, but maybe not even middle ground. Engage your customer first before you put this thing in anywhere, right? And just say, well, we're thinking about doing this. Does that have value for you?
Yeah. Well, you've just kicked us all the way back to the user validation step. Like if you're the old business analysis.
Well, at least the need validation up front.
The need
right?
validation.
And then on the functional validation later.
That's the old business analysis, like the dirty tricks of the BA. Like hey, if we did X, would it solve your issue? Would it solve the problem that you're seeking to solve?
Yeah.
And then if we did Y on top of that, would it further make you happy with the solution? If we did Z, if we did X and Y and Z all together in the application, would that be something that you would be willing to pay for?
Yep.
And that, like they've led the customer along. All that stuff happens when zero software has been written at all. But if you're saying, well, I mean, I can just code something and throw it out to the customer, I mean, I guess if you have a whole development staff just sitting around not doing anything, that you have the money to just throw out active prototypes, right? I mean, I guess that's great. I just don't know a lot of companies that have that access.
I was going to say, yeah. If you have that
to do user validation in live code. User validation in live code.
It's risky at best, right? I mean, so if you had a lot of developers sitting around doing nothing, why not have them create 3 different scenarios, right? And put all of that in production and have the customer test out all of them.
Sure.
You're basically doing customer validation or user validation in production, which is a risky proposition.
Right. Assume you're pre-product market fit. You're not sure that you know what these customers' problems really are. So you're taking shots in the dark what would resolve their problems. Yeah. So rather than mock it up, you're just going to build real live software to deal with their problems. Like, I mean, will the users actually know that real live software is different than a mock-up with fake data? Will they really know that? I don't know. But what I'm saying is you're validating ideas. The 4 Marty Kagan categories. Is it valuable? Meaning, do our customers find value? Will they use it? Is it usable? Can our customers figure out how to use it? Is it feasible? Can we actually develop it with our technology and developers that we have in house? And is it viable? Does it actually work for our business model and how we're going to sell it and that kind of stuff? If you can zip through those 4 things and validate every single one with your customers, great. But like, how are you going to just build something that validates all 4 of those things right away? I mean, you're taking on a lot of responsibility through the development team. I mean, those 4 things are like barely related.
That's right. You said responsibility. I was going to use a different R word. You're taking a lot of risk at that point. You're basically saying, I'm going to put all this my stack of chips on 00 right here on the roulette table. And maybe once in a while, maybe that little ball falls in the 00. But hey, that is a small chance.
Right. Right. Even in the Marty Kagan categories, he splits those up. I mean, the usability goes to the UI UX designer. The value goes to the product person.
Right.
The feasibility goes to the tech lead or the devs. He splits those up to the whole team. Yeah. So you're basically saying, I don't need to split those up. I'm gonna just code them straight out in the application. I guess it's if our company was like. The Brian and Ohm Software Development Company 3, because remember we sold our first and second companies.
I sold the yachts afterwards.
The yachts also got sold because apparently we have problems, financial problems. Anyway, I don't know. There may or may not have been an edit here, a hard edit here. We were discussing country music circa 5 years ago. But the lack of user validation, that's what we're on. Lack of user validation. Like, I mean, I guess if you're going back to our podcast that we did with Alex, talking about your intuition versus evidence, like when you're building something brand new, you need intuition to guide you.
Sure.
But then, as you build things, you need evidence. You need to be evidence-based.
You need validation at least.
You need validation, yes.
Yeah.
So, skip this step. I guess what I'm saying is skip this step at your own risk.
Definitely skip it at your peril because you don't know how it's going to land,
right.
Especially if your product is such where you have people that use it in different ways. It's not like just the one thing, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to circumvent the validation piece, you're essentially just gambling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so skip those steps at your peril because nothing much good can happen out of that. What about the scenario where maybe you work with your largest customer or representation thereof? Bring them in and bring them into your organization and co-develop something with them pretty quickly And still, I'm falling short of this idea of putting into production, even if it's for them. Like, let them kick the tires in a sandbox, maybe like a UAT type of environment. When you hear good signals, you can then promote that up to, up to production. Otherwise, you're taking a huge risk, I feel.
I want to pivot. Missing opportunities for course correction. Because I feel that when you're saying, well, I don't need to do prototyping or I don't need to do discovery, why do discovery work? Like, I'll just build it live in production. Okay, maybe, but also, like, what happens when you're very close to the mark, but not quite at the mark?
Right.
If you're doing wireframes, you're doing clickable prototypes, for example, and you're sharing those, a customer tells you something, like, you can, like, if you have a UI UX designer that's really on point, right there on the call, they can make some changes, roll it out while you're kind of discussing the back and forth, and fire away, and they can say, yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking about. They can tell you right there on the spot.
Yeah, and that's the best way and the most efficient way of reducing the delta, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I think if you're not really doing that due diligence, you're missing that opportunity to, like it says, course correct, basically.
Yeah.
You're assuming a direction is the right direction.
Right.
And you're then not only putting it in production, you're almost inflicting on the user, that specific direction, right?
Yeah.
And when you hear back, inevitably, I find that's not quite right. You may be close, but it's not quite right. Now you got to come back and do it. But it's already in production now.
Assuming you can immediately come back to it. Many, many, many different programs I've worked on, we support many different types of personas and say, hey, we're trying to do something in this sprint for this particular user. And we did something, and we demo it to them and say, and the user says, well, this is close to what we need, but if you really did this one other thing, it would really make us happy. But we have commitments in the next couple of weeks to say, well, we won't be able to get back to this feature for, a sprint or two, or likely like 3, right? Like 6 weeks out.
Right.
Because we have so much of this stuff stacked up for other users that we've committed to or promised to, or maybe we're doing, a juggling act because it's sales renewal season or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yes, we built something and we got it out to them quickly. But the risk is if we don't exactly hit the mark and they want small tweaks, like the delighter feature in the Kano model of like this very small tweak we could have given them very quickly, we can't do that now because we got all this other stuff stacked up for all these other personas. Yeah. That's every development team I've ever been on. It's like, we know we can't get to all the work, so we just have to prioritize what we're trying to get to, and that's like where the product management function makes all its money, because there's so much work we want to do. I can't even imagine an environment where you can get to everything, where you don't need to do this.
It's rare. I've seen none of that in my past, right? So to your point, so that delayed delighter is no delighter, because now the customer experience is already out there, and it's not ideal, right? You didn't nail it.
Right.
You might be in the same zip code, but you didn't nail it.
Yeah.
And consequently, you basically all of this comes down to kind of like the reputation, right?
Yeah.
You're not really making me happy by putting this in product. By the way, you didn't get any feedback from me to begin with. I could have told you. It's customer's voice, right?
Yeah.
So, you're right. It's several days, weeks later that you can actually make the correction.
Right.
Think about that, right? Because a lot of this comes back to you after the fact. It's in production now, and you're running.
It's in production, but you've now introduced an additional layer of user frustration, or extra steps that user has to go through. The other way this manifests that I have seen as a product manager, it manifests in low adoption of your new features. Yeah. So you'll say, oh, we did this thing that everyone said they wanted, but no one's using it.
Right.
You should have known before you launched it, before you coded it, that no one was going to use it. You should have gone down that road. You should have. I guess what I'm saying is your leadership is going to perceive it as, why did you launch a feature that no one is using? How did you not know that before you launched it? And that question, it sounds very challenging, but if we peel it back to trying to be a helpful question, it is the right question to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. It usually comes back that way. You're right. So if you rush this thing into production, you likely did not put in telemetry in place to see how the user is using it. Are they using it? Are they struggling? Are they happy? Are they content? Are they delighted? You don't know any of that because you didn't put it in. You just rushed it, right? So yeah, nothing good can come out of that, I don't think, unless, again, you happen to be so lucky that, that little white ball landed in the double zeros. Right. It's very rare. Yeah. I mean, do you want to take the chance? That's what it boils down to.
I mean, broken clock is right twice a day. Like that's this kind of scenario. Like I've been on with a lot of people that said we need this feature, and they were right. But also, I've been with a lot more people that said we need this feature, and we built the feature, and they were completely wrong. And once we built the feature, and it was completely the wrong feature because we took it on face value that stakeholder, usually it's executive, sales, something like that,
right?
That they did their research and they were correct on the right thing to build. I would say it's starkly in the camp of they did not do their research and they are wrong, and the adoption fails to meet expectations, and now that comes back on the product manager and the development team. It does not come back on the stakeholders who suggested or heavily implied or demanded or whatever the feature. Or the executive.
Stakeholders will turn right around and say you didn't do it right.
That's in the Marty Kagan Transform book. Actually, he even goes out of his way to say it doesn't come back on any of those people that demand the feature.
That's right.
It comes back on the product manager.
People that develop it and implement it. Exactly. I think this is kind of broadly in the category of build it and they'll come. It's like, you don't know what they need, right? So maybe you happen to build the right mousetrap for the right person, at the right time, for the right size mouse. You got to get really lucky for that. Don't take your chances, guys. Don't take your chances.
Oh, well, I mean, if you're willing to take chances, take a chance on this podcast. Like and subscribe.
Definitely.
Take a chance on this podcast. We didn't talk about stakeholder alignment.
Yes.
We didn't talk about that one. Aligning always says so. If you're doing prototyping as opposed to just throwing stuff into production, you have the opportunity to align your stakeholders and align and actually not just the stakeholders. It's also the features you're building. You have an opportunity to really think about, hey, a lot of stakeholders think this would be a great feature, but does it really line up to my product vision? Like my meaning, I'm the product manager now. Does it really line up to the product vision that I'm trying to promote?
Yeah.
And if you're just kind of haphazardly building things, throwing them out there, are you purposefully moving forward? Is what I'm asking.
You're likely building a Frankenmonster, right? If you keep doing it over and over again. So that's what I meant earlier. I think I mentioned that a little bit. Does it align with your overall product strategy and direction, right? But in regard to the stakeholders, so you put something out there in production. Do you know if that can be supported by your support people? Have they been apprised of what's going on here, right? Or are they going to be surprised? I mean, right. You have to go through that, right? Enable your ops people. Right? Have you done the right change management piece that's needed and the right comms, or are people just going to suddenly discover this thing?
You can at least publicize the prototyping phase. Say, hey, we've got these prototypes, these screen designs, this clickable wireframe. It's publicly accessible in my company, so everybody can see the path that we're considering.
Yeah.
Regardless of what stakeholders are involved in evolving the actual clickable wireframes or prototypes or whatever. Those prototypes should sit in some sort of shared environment where everyone can see them. Again, because we go back to transparency is a good thing, right?
Right.
To say this is where we're going next, there should be some kind of, at least quarterly update to say you should be constantly forecasting the findings of your wireframes and your discovery activities with your internal stakeholders. Honestly, you should be doing it for everyone, but your internal stakeholders at a minimum, so they can start lining up to say, there's a new feature that now you can click on it and you can see, X, Y, Z, from all the way from the beginning to the end in the application. Now that's really cool. And there'll be a period of time where we can ask questions and talk about it or whatever. How do we sell it? How do we support it? How do we maintain it? How do we, make it go away when it's time for it to go away or whatever? There's a top to bottom kind of life cycle that needs to be talked about internally so that everyone can line up. And I put that on the product manager. That is squarely the product manager's job. But also, if you're prototyping and everyone has a say in the matter, everyone should be able to speak to that. The designer, the developers, you know what I mean? Everyone should be able to understand from top to bottom.
I fully agree with that. I mean, maybe your ops people will say, listen, we can't monitor that stuff that you're putting in there. Right. We don't know how it's going to scale when 1,000 concurrent users get on there. So yeah, you're right. I would go a little further here and say, if you're doing this, again, non-prod, but production-like environment, get your customers close to you into that environment and say, here's what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Does this look right to you? What would you change, right? Is this a value to you, right? That's the early feedback. Now, you're not spending a whole lot of time there necessarily. Imagine that, compare the two scenarios where you're just developing and shoving that into production versus developing and putting it into a lower environment, production-like production, and getting them in and say, put your hands on this and let us know what you think. How much of a stretch is that, really?
Clickable wireframes are so advanced now that you can tie them into a real database. Like, I mean, they're very, compared to 5 years ago, they're very advanced now where they have a lot of capability. I mean, they can even integrate with APIs, believe it or not, like some wireframes.
And not every button needs to do anything.
No, and they certainly don't. But the point is, you could be, when you update the wireframes or when you get to some intentional spot that you get to in your prototyping experience, you can send out an email blast to your power users. Because that's what we're talking about now. When you say, oh, we're going to promote it to this lower environment, not every single one of your users is going to have access to the lower environment. No. They're probably going to be a select group of users that you value, right? To send out an email blast that says, hey, these new features are in this environment if you want to go poke around and look at them. And then when you do, here's the link to my calendar to schedule some time to talk about what you see. Whenever you want, schedule some time. And I, the product manager, will get on the call. Obviously, it'll go to my calendar. I'll get on a call, or maybe it'll go to a team calendar, whatever, right? Get on a call, bring my tech lead. We'll talk to what you think about the new features. We started in this podcast talking about, okay, the reason you would just say, oh, if it's real easy, we'll just send it out and we'll just code it and send it out. You did that because the speed of delivery, it's easier for me to just throw something out there rather than spend a bunch of time talking about it, and it costs less. We don't have to engage a designer. We don't have to engage all this. We don't have to send whatever. We can just code it and send it out. You can do the same thing with clickable wireframes.
Sure.
And it costs you, I would argue, way less to send it out, and an email blast to your beta customers or whatever, alpha customers, whatever they are. Schedule some time with your product manager and have the people that really are interested in making a difference connect with you. I mean, you can do outreach too. You can send them screenshots or whatever, right? You can do outreach. You can do direct outreach.
Sure.
Because if somebody's reaching out for you to get time in your calendar to tell you what they think,
they're vested in it.
They're really engaged at that point. I mean, you really have to value that kind of feedback, because usually as a product manager, what I deal with is I have to go beg people for their feedback. I have to send out 100 emails and I get back maybe 5. And out of those 5, how many are willing to have a 20-minute conversation with me? Very few, right? I mean, that is the reality of asking for feedback, which should be a whole different podcast. Asking for feedback.
It should be. I mean, look, I immediately think about, things like putting out something that really appeals to them in the email blast and say, this is so important, right? We need feedback by this date.
Right.
And, the top 5 people will be on this little, almost like you'll have an event, so to speak, right? So the top 5 people will be featured in that. Basically create a sense of urgency for them to engage with you. Otherwise, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, I'm busy right now." But
I mean, the other thing you can do if you're a product manager and you have a budget and you're not in the government space. I have to point that out if you're not, because in the government space, you can't do this. But in the B2B space, you can offer like fabulous cash prizes.
Sure.
Basically, you can offer
incentives,
compensation for their time. Hey, 30 minutes of your time. Review, and we'll send you
Amazon gift card.
Amazon gift card.
You're right. I mean, there's techniques to lure people into do this, right? In a timely manner. That's what I'm saying. Absolutely. Because you put this out there and you want quick feedback.
The interesting thing about this is if you're not thinking this way, and this is like a revelation to you right now, like how much is feedback on that new feature worth to your company? Is it worth $500? So you get 5 reviews, you give them each a $100 Amazon gift card. Like is $500 worth it to you for unbiased direct user feedback?
It's worth its weight in gold, in my opinion.
On a feature that you launched.
For sure. Look at the flip side of it, right? So say $500, don't do that. But what if something really, it hits the proverbial fan, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Or you suffer rep damage, and that is a lot worse. Right? So definitely, $500, sure, do it.
Yeah, there's some easy stuff here. There's some low-hanging fruit here. I brought this up because somebody that I interacted with my normal day-to-day, they brought up, hey, why don't we just build this? We don't need to do prototyping or whatever, and I didn't feel good about that. The hair on the back of my neck, it all stood up, and I was like, something's wrong here. My spidey sense is tingling, and I don't know why. I couldn't exactly describe why I felt negatively about the statement in the moment. But after thinking about it afterwards, there's so many opportunities for learning and to do a better job if we just try these prototyping steps. There are very few cases where it makes sense to just build it and throw it out there. I'm not completely on the fence of we have to prototype everything. I do think that if we were small enough and we had a controlled group of users, this tactic would work. If our app was small enough, we were very early in product market fit. This is what I'm saying.
I think you also have to tie it down to specific use cases or personas. Then it could work. Yeah.
Few personas, small team, very, very specific use cases. Yeah, I mean, very small company type of,
It's a calculated risk at the end of the day. I mean, that's how I look at it, right? You got to calculate the risk factors appropriately. Yeah. But, having said that, though, it's not like we're saying, or at least I'm not saying that you don't ever do that. You always ever do all of the due diligence. There's a middle ground here, right? Sure. And that's where I mentioned that kind of like a preview environment where you can put this thing into quickly and get your customers in there, again, quickly. It might not be 2 hours. It might be a day. Yeah. But that's okay. It's worth spending that time rather than rushing it out there. Right. That's what we're saying.
That does make sense for the companies that they have the money for having a middle ground environment like that. Not every company has that, because there are certain development practices required for you to be able to have a middle ground environment like that. Yeah. That has all the data, all the production data, but in this sandbox that you can't mess anything up or whatever.
It's not a technical reason why they don't have it. Usually.
No. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because it's easy to replicate a database.
It is. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. If you listen to this podcast, you now know that it's possible, and you now know that it really doesn't cost that much more.
Yeah.
So go do it. You have our blessings. Go do it.
Absolutely.
And also, you have our blessings to like and subscribe.
Oh, please like and subscribe, because you'll get more nuggets of wisdom like this that's worth every penny you didn't pay for.